Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. Thank you for joining today's class. In today's class, we're going to be talking about TQM tools, total quality management tools. And I'm going to talk to you specifically about four tools in this lecture. This is a two-part series, so there is a part two of this lecture, and I'll be discussing some other tools in that lecture with you. But I do want to point out that these are very useful tools. And so if you are intending to be, in the field of supply chain management, if you know these tools and you are comfortable with these tools, it will help you identify problems in any organization and solve those problems very well. Also, it will help you understand how to make positive changes in your organization. So, without further ado, I'm going to just kick off the session today, and I'm going to start talking to you about the seven deadly wastes. So, there is, now this topic of the seven deadly wastes is very important because many times what happens is, there are organizations, but the management does not know where the problems are. So, you may hear a very senior person say, you know what, we have a lot of problems in our organization. And they may not necessarily be very clear where the problems are or how to solve them. So this method, this tool of the seven deadly wastes, this helps any manager identify problems in the organization that do need to be solved, and if they are solved, the organization shifts to becoming more lean, and the leaner an organization is, the better it is, right? So that's what every organization wants. They want to be lean. They don't want to have, if you compare a lean person to a fat person, a lean person doesn't have, is very thin, very agile, whereas a fat person, on the other hand, maybe a little lethargic, slow to move. So companies want to be lean. And so, okay, so that with that, now let me start talking to you about the seven deadly wastes. The first one I'm going to talk to you is about defects. So many times what happens is in an organization, a product is being made. It could be a service, oriented product. It could be an actual manufacturing product, but something is being made. And the problem is that sometimes it's right, and sometimes the final outcome has a defect in it. Now, this is a very serious problem. Nowadays, there is a movement for organizations to move towards Lean Six Sigma, which basically means that virtually no defects or no mistakes are made in the manufacturing process. And so there's like one mistake, maybe in several million, uh, iterations. So if there are several million products being made, there's only going to be one defect in it. That is what the idea is. Actually, there should be zero, but okay, they're allowing one in several million. So this is a big thing. Now, many people in organizations says, no problem. This is defective, um, product that has been made. We can sell it to somebody at a lower price, at a cheaper price. Well, that is not the ideal situation. You remember, you are in a business to maximize profit. And so if you're having to take defective products where a lot of input has gone in, but the output is not correct, then that is a serious problem and should not be allowed in any organization. The next one I'm going to talk to you about, the next deadly waste I'm going to talk to you is inventory. Now, a lot of companies, if you walk in to, let's say, a company and they have a warehouse and you see a lot of, extra inventory over there, that is a big danger sign. Because inventory effectively means that a company's money is stuck in the inventory. And so they usually get into a cash crunch situation. nowadays companies are moving towards a just in time inventory management system, and in that, only when a product is being made, the material comes in just in time for the actual manufacturing to happen, and extra things are not being made. Things are being made in a pull sort of way rather than a push process. So only when orders are coming in are things actually being made. So again, big inventory, big problem. That is a deadly waste, and you definitely want to reduce it and think of how you want to reduce it. Next, I want to talk to you about something which is motion or movement. Now, sometimes you go into an organization and you see people are just walking around, looking extremely busy, but when you find out what they're doing, they're not necessarily doing anything that is of value to the company. So maybe they're just sitting and chit chatting or talking or just moving around, looking busy, going to meetings. There's lots of meetings going on, lots of movement, but the actual outcomes are nil or very low. This is a problem. Extra movement, motion, people going around, behaving busy, all of that is not a good idea. The focus should be on outcomes. So any useless movement or motion, useless time being spent in activities that are not adding value need to be eliminated. This is another deadly waste. All right, moving on. Extra processing. What does this mean? Well, what happens is many times, like for example, there's a demand for a shirt, a simple white shirt. But somebody says, the company says, oh, it's a white shirt, but why don't we just add some extra little embroidery? Why not just add some extra, buttons? Even though the demand was for a simple white shirt, the company started doing over processing. Now, what is the customer is only ready to pay for the white shirt that they wanted. So the company will not be able to get extra money for the embroidery or the extra things that they have added on the shirt. Therefore, it is useless. There should be no extra processing. Companies need to know exactly what there is demand for, what customers are willing to pay for, and they should only do as much of processing as is required. Extra processing is another deadly waste. Next, waiting. There's a very famous saying that time is any person's most valuable asset, and I completely agree with this. If you make your customers wait, let's say you're on an airport, there are three flights, three airlines competing with each other, and you see that in one airline, they are always making their customers wait. There are very, very long waiting lines. Well, rest assured that the next time that customer who has had to wait for a very long time, given a chance, he will probably switch to another airline. Nobody likes waiting. Similarly, if you go to a restaurant and they're making, customers wait excessively long periods of time, people will not like that. They will not want to go to the restaurant again. So, waiting is a deadly waste. You never ever want to make a situation where you are making your customers wait. You want to deliver on time, quick, fast, and eliminate any waste of time of your customers. All right, the next one is I'm going to talk about transportation. Now, transportation is something that people say not a big deal. We have a car or we have a truck and we have a driver. So, if the truck or driver is going around a little bit extra, it's really not that big of a deal. Well, actually, it is a big deal. And extra transportation adds to cost in a big way. When there is a lot of transportation, with that, there is a petrol cost that is affiliated. Also, there is a depreciation of the actual vehicle. So there's a lot of wear and tear. And all of this leads to additional costs. So when you are developing a process or a procedure, you want to make sure to eliminate as much of transportation cost as you finally can. The final deadly waste that I'm going to be talking to you about is overproduction. if you have there, you should be able to follow a taht, a TAKT, taht, meaning that you are only producing as much as there is demand in the market. If you are producing a lot more than what there is demand in the market, you again will be stuck with overproduction, which also will lead to, extra inventory and all kinds of problems. So again, you should only be producing, as much at the same rate as the demand in the market. So these are the seven deadly waste. Now, if you go into a company and you see, either excess transportation, overproduction, extra processing, waiting, movement, motion, or defects, well, you should easily be able to pinpoint them as deadly wastes. And those are the problems that you want to go in and fix first. So, a great tool, very good, because when you know the seven deadly wastes, you can quickly identify where the problems are. Without this, and if you are said asked to go in and evaluate what's happening, let's say on a factory floor, you will be lost. You'll say, it seems okay, everybody seems busy, there seems to be a lot of goods ready to be shipped to the market. Yeah, there's some mistakes, but it really doesn't matter. But once you know this tool, you can easily identify the seven deadly wastes and start moving in the direction of eliminating those deadly wastes. Next, I'm going to be talking to you about another really amazing tool called 5S. And, for your information, I've added a YouTube link over here, and, please feel free to watch. It's a small clip, but it talks again, a lot about 5S. I'm going to be explaining it to you, but, it sort of talks about how any company can start using 5S. So the big question is, what is 5S and what's its benefits? So I'm going to talk to you first about the benefits of 5S, and then I'm going to tell you exactly, go into what it is and how it can be done in any organization. So 5S is basically organizing the workplace in an efficient way. So instead of things being all messy, just imagine your room, for example. You let's say walk into your room, and if it's in a messy situation, you will be wasting a lot of time finding things. You may, be looking for a particular piece of paper where you have your notes on it, or something really important. And you know what? You may end up wasting a good hour or 2 hours finding that. Versus if you walk into your room and it's a clean room and things are organized in an efficient way, well, the good news is you would easily be able to identify things and find things. And that saves a lot of time. And you can use that extra hour a lot more productively in the day. And this applies also to companies, right? So it's, the 5S basically helps standardize operations, and this leads to repeatable and predictable processes. So again, what if there is, let's say, an ideal manufacturing method or process, you don't want to be reinventing the wheel. Once you nail down that process or procedure, it should be easily repeatable, easy for people to come in daily and do in a predictable, repeatable way. And when you have this, when you have everything organized systematically, in an efficient way, this eliminates a lot of abnormalities immediately. It also helps eliminate this five deadly wastes, and it also helps to lay the foundation for other lean improvements. So it's a pretty fantastic tool. And so let's kind of start talking about what this is. How is this done? Well, this is, based on a Japanese, it's a Japanese sort of terminology that has come about. And so there are some words, the 5S, the first one is series, seton, siso, siketsu, and shitsuki. So these are the 5 S's, right? Hard to pronounce, but more than the actual words, what is important is that you understand what is going on. So in order for me to explain the 5S, I'm going to take an example of a very messy closet. So just imagine your closet, you walk in and it's just a complete mess. There are some winter clothes, some summer clothes, some wedding clothes, some day-to-day clothes, all kind of just jumbled up. Now, what the problem in that closet is, you are not able to find things. You feel that you have to do more shopping because you just aren't able to find anything. You know, if you have to go out somewhere, you can't find anything. So you are in a mess. And so finally, you decide that you want to implement the 5S and you want to kind of organize your closet. Well, how are you supposed to do it? And I actually implemented this, by the way, 5S for my sister when I visited her and in her home, and we decided to do implement the 5S on her. She got these huge cupboards, and so we decided to, you know, implement the 5S. So what we did was, it was a big endeavor, but we took everything out of her closet, and we made a big pile, and we kind of just put everything in that pile. And then we started saying, looking through the clothes and saying, you know what? Okay, what are the things that you never wear? So the first thing was, we started, doing the sorting, clearing, and classifying. So we made a couple of of categories. We said, okay, well, maybe one category of formal clothes, one informal clothes, one clothes that you never wear, and so you want to keep those separate, and maybe one that you only wear like once a year or very, very rarely, right? And then maybe a separate thing for winter clothes and a separate category for summer clothes. And then we started, once we made those separate piles, we said, okay, well, first of all, we can remove the clutter. So the things that you've never worn for, like, let's say the past 3 years, maybe we can donate these somewhere. So we said, okay, going to remove the clutter. That's the first of the 5S. Second, we is the straighten, simplify, set in order, configure. So then we started saying, all right, this is the whole categorization, you know, but more than that, kind of being like, okay, well, how are we going to put these in your closet? Maybe what we need to do is, we take these really formal clothes that you hardly ever wear, maybe once a year, and we put them in a storage, because you don't need these on a day-to-day basis. And the day-to-day clothes that you're wearing, let's put them really close to the entrance of your closet, so that when you come in, you can easily pick out and see what you need, and you can do that. And for your summer clothes, we can keep them in one closet, your winter clothes in a different closet, so that it's just easy for you. And so this entire idea was, the second 5S, which is straightening, simplifying, setting in order, and configuring. So we were here, if you can see, what we're doing is, making sure that the day-to-day clothes are upfront, easy to access. Also, you don't want that the day-to-day clothes are really high up or really in a place that are very hard to get. So you want them to be easy to pick out. There should be enough light and all of that. The next step is sweep, shine, scrub, clean, and check. So, you're doing all of this, but you definitely want to make sure that before you start, you've decided that how you're going to put things back into your closet, but you want to make sure that your closet is nice and clean before you start putting in things back into the closet. You want to make sure everything is clean. So you clean things out. Also, if the closet needs, let's say, extra lighting, you want to put that lighting in so that it's easy to see. And just check everything. Are the lights working? Is it, everything? Are there enough hangers for you to actually put things back? All of those things you figure out in step number 3. Finally, this is, then the fourth step, you kind of put things into the closet, and you do it in a standardized way. So you say, you know what, from now on, this is going to be the day-to-day clothes section for summer. Your winter clothes are in a separate closet, and you have it very standardized. So you decide that going forward, whenever you have clothes lying around in the room, This is how it's going to be. This is the standard operating procedure. So you are going to take your day-to-day clothes, put them over here. Your formal clothes are in the storage. They are put separate. And finally, is the last step is the 5S, and this is maintaining self-discipline, sustaining custom and practice. And so this is like a promise not to let the closet go and jumble things up again. So you need to make sure that you daily you follow this routine of putting away clothes in the right way. So these are the 5S steps. Now, one thing I do want to mention, that when I was, in this example, taking the formal clothes or the wedding clothes that my sister was wearing only once a year, let's say, and putting them in a storage, that was something called the red tag. I was red tagging those clothes. So red tag is basically in this entire, it's, imagine this entire 5S is being done on a factory floor. In that case, those things that are hardly ever used, a red tag is put on them and they are put away in storage, and only those things are left out that are always going to are in use on a daily basis. So these are the these are the steps of 5S. And they seem pretty simple, but you may go into a factory floor, for example, and you see that it's really well organized. And once you see that, you will also know that the people working over there, they are probably doing working in a very efficient, good way, and being able to be very productive. Versus if you go into a factory that's kind of dark and dingy and messy, it's just very hard to breathe, let's say, or and the lighting is really bad, well, you'll know that there's a high probability of accidents. There's a high probability of that things are getting lost, and the productivity level will not be optimum. So those are some things just to kind of keep in mind. I kind of wanted to give a personal example. When I was in college, I was always, I was living abroad in the US, and I was going to university, and I was living in a dorm. And so many times what used to happen is I would lose my keys. It happened many, many times. And I remember several times getting, so they would charge you for it. Every time you would lose your key, you had to pay a penalty. So I ended up paying my penalty several times and getting so stressed out. Much easier way, what had if I had to do it again, was to sort of implement the 5S and sort of categorize it, and say, my key is always going to go in this place, and I would always be able to pick it out of my purse or my bag, and I would always know where it is. And so that would say had saved me so much of trouble. Similarly, I want to just let you know, once quite a while ago, several years ago, I actually implemented a 5S in somebody's store. There was a lady by the name of Tanya. She had a store in New York City, and it was kind of messy. She needed it to look a lot nicer. And so me and a couple of friends went in. I built an entire program out of implementing the 5S, and we actually helped her in a big way. And her store started looking better. Customers, she was able to find things easily. Customers started liking it. It was looking better, and overall, her productivity improved in a big way. So when now I'm going to sort of talk to you a little bit about 5S benefits. So I did mention them up front, but I want to sort of really emphasize them again. Once you implement 5S, your productivity goes up. Things are easy to reach and find. There is no clutter or delay. So remember, for example, when I was always losing my keys, there was a lot of delay. But if I implemented 5S, there would be no delays. I would easily be able, the key would easily be within my reach. I would be more productive because all that time I would spend, calling, replacing the key, I could spend it on something much more productive. And one thing is, it's very important that whenever you are organizing a factory, it is done in an ergonomic way. And this basically means it should be easy. easy for you to be able to reach and find the key. Now, if I put the key in a place that's really hard for me to take out of my bag and put in my bag, that is not necessarily very ergonomic. That's not easy. So whatever, however, your planning is, it has to be ergonomic so that it's easy. So let's say there's a tool, you shouldn't be putting it so high up in that it's impossible for the workers to take it down. Maybe that they need to use, like, let's say, a stool to, or climb up a ladder to take that tool down. That's not ergonomically friendly. But if it's in their hands reach and they can easily pick it up and use it and put it away, that is ergonomics. It's an ergonomically friendly sort of design. So these are things to kind of keep in mind. Next, is if you do implement 5S, you will have a reduction in delays. Visual management shows when products and tools are missing. So if you actually label things that, and this is great. A great way of doing visual management is, a lot of ladies, in when they're using lots of different spices and they're making things in the kitchen. Nowadays, a lot of ladies actually have bottles where they have, written on each bottle what's in each bottle. So that's visual management. Once, as soon as they open the closet, they know which bottle has what in it. Versus other ladies that don't do visual management, when they open their closet, their kitchen cabinet, they'll just see a bunch of bottles and they will not be able to find what they need very easily. So again, visual management helps reduce in delays. So if somebody's cooking and they can easily find what they need, they'll be able to do it a lot faster. Also, problems are easily highlighted. If materials are out of place, if something has gone missing and there's visual management, you'll easily be able to say, hey, that's missing. Um, Leaks and other machine problems can also easily be identified if you're using 5S. So it's not like things can get, covered up. It's kind of easy to see what's going on if you have implemented 5S. Another big benefit of 5S is that it improves quality. You have standardized processes, the right tools and equipments are available, there's improved handling, so there's less damage, and improved reliability of equipment. So when you have things laid out very well, you have visual management, you implemented the 5S, it's just a whole lot easier to do things. Your productivity improves and the quality improves. So the right things, the right, let's say, materials are going to be going in. Things are so much, you can easily see what's going on, and so definitely the quality improves. Another big benefit is safety. Now, I want to kind of talk a little bit about this. You all are familiar with Zainab Market in Karachi, and so many times what happens in Zainab markets, unfortunately, every like 5 to 10 years is that we hear of a very big fire and we hear the entire Zainab market kind of burning down. Many of the plazas in Karachi, if you go there, there is a problem that there are no exits, safety exits. And so this is very, very dangerous. This is a very big problem. Now, if a company, if a factory is using, 5S methodology, they are going to be taking care of the safety element. And they will want to make sure that people are safe. And so if, for example, if there's a machine that is very hot and it's dangerous, they would have a sign on it saying that it's dangerous, do not touch, high temperature. Similarly, if there's any kind of a problem or dangers, all of those are kind of highlighted in a big way. If somebody has to, let's say, wear gloves for a process, even that will be a reminder maybe will come up. So those are things to that are, this is also a very big element or benefit of 5S. A couple, another big one is marketing. When you have a very visually tidy workplace, this can give a great impression to current or potential customers. One thing I do want to mention is whenever a foreign, let's say, company is planning on having an agreement with let's say a factory, they in Pakistan, they fly in and they look at that factory, and they want to make sure that there are no labor, big problems going on. There's safety exits, that the factory is neat and tidy and it looks good, and only if they're satisfied will they actually sign the contract and move forward with the manufacturing. So your factory floor is, to a certain extent, a great marketing method for any company. So this is very important to remember, that it's not just a waste of money or time to invest on implementing 5S in a factory or a company. It actually has big benefits. It's also very good for the morale and motivation of employees. They feel that they're working in a safer work environment. There's less stress for them. They are more involved in making their own improvements and empowerment. They have the empowerment to make changes. So, just imagine one worker working in a really nice, neat, tidy factory that has all kinds of safety precautions, versus another person working in really bad environment, and unsafe and dingy, and just depressing kind of. I mean, obviously the productivities will be very, very different, and the level of motivation and morale will also be different in both of these factories. So with that, that kind of is, I come to the end of 5S. And so I hope you've gotten a good idea of what 5S is and its benefits. Next, I'm going to talk to you about another very interesting tool, which is known as DMAIC. And so over here, you can kind of see what DMAIC is: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And before I kind of dig deep into, what a DMAIC is and all of that, I kind of want to sort of draw a parallel over here with somebody who may, any person who may have some sort of an illness or a problem, and they go into the doctor. And so they have some problems. Let's say they have a fever, or they are, they've got a cough and a fever, or lack of appetite, and they go to the doctor. They're not exactly sure what the problem is, but they go to a doctor. Okay. And what happens when they go to the doctor is, the first thing that happens is, well, their vitals are taken. So they, before the doctor even sees them, they are sent to a nurse. The nurse usually takes their weight, their height, blood pressure, temperature, all of those things. And so they measure all the vitals, and they send it to the doctor. And then the doctor kind of looks at everything and talks to the patient, talks to them about their problem. By the way, all of the problems information reaches the doctor before they meet the patient. But anyhow, the doctor confirms the problems, asks any additional problem, questions they may have. They also look at all of these metrics that were given by the nurse. And then they start analyzing the problem, and they say, okay, based on their knowledge, what does this seem like? What is the actual problem? And so they analyze it, and then finally they diagnose some sort of a medication. And so they give the medication, and they tell the patient, look, you know what, we're giving you this medication, but we need you to come back. So we want to measure how you're doing. So it's not that we've given you the medicine and that you just leave. You need to keep coming back. So after, let's say, a week, 2 weeks, they give a next appointment, and they check whether or not there has been an improvement. And so let's say that in a best case scenario, the improvement has started happening. They will say, great, please continue with the medication. Slow and steady, they will then try and control the problem. And once the problem is completely in control, they will start perhaps reducing the medication and giving alternates, lifestyle changes for the patient. Similarly, in businesses, when there are some problems, showing up, you may not know what the real root cause problem is, but you kind of have to go and figure it out, almost like a doctor does, actually, very similar to how a doctor does. So you kind of look at the problem, you go close to the problem, you measure the problems that are showing up, you analyze them, you try and come up with some solutions, measure the impact of those solutions, and then try and have a controlled, sustainable, long term solution. So now I'm going to, after giving you that kind of an overview, I'm going to talk to you more in detail about DMAIC. So DMAIC, as I just mentioned, is the acronym for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. And it refers to a data-driven improvement cycle used for improving, optimizing, and stabilizing business processes and designs. And this is a core tool that is used in Six Sigma projects. So again, the whole idea is to reduce defects. Remember, Six Sigma is all about reducing defects. And so DMAIC is about, again, figuring out there's a problem and trying to solve that problem, right? So it's a very core tool. It's a very important tool that is used. Now, I'm going to go into each of the phases of DMAIC. The first one being define phase. And in this here, you need to sort of have identified, okay, there is some sort of a problem. It and it, this is a big enough reason to actually start the DMAIC process to improve the product or process, and you have to kind of build a business case. So if it's a very minor problem, perhaps you can overlook it. But if there is a big problem, like for example, let me give you an example. There was a DMAIC was used in a hospital once where the green robes that people wear, they just kept disappearing, and they kept disappearing, and nobody kind of knew where they were going. And so the organization said, you know what, there's some sort of a problem going on, process of, we buy these in bulk, but they're all just disappearing. So this was a problem, and they kind of defined it as a problem. Could be a very obvious problem, right? And then they built you have to kind of build a business case, and you have to kind of mention, okay, this is the problem. What is the goal? By fixing, what is your goal? What is the ideal situation that you want? You have to build you can't do one person. This is not a one person job to implement the domain uh, process. You will need a team of people, and in that team, there everybody should have defined roles and responsibilities. The domain project should have a project scope, and constraints, assumptions. All of these things need to be identified. The team should have certain guidelines. There should be a communication plan and a preliminary project plan of how you are going to fix this particular problem that you have come up with. And then once you have this business case, and let's say senior management says, yes, it seems like a very important case, problem, please go ahead and fix it. The first thing you need to do is you need to really measure what is going on. Okay. And so this is extremely important. Now, in order to measure the problem, once you have made the business case, you really have to go close to the problem and kind of start checking the frequency and severity of the problem. And you basically, when you're trying to measure, what you're doing is you're trying to validate the problem and refine the goal, measure input and output, right? So what you're doing is you're saying, okay, you know what, this, for example, in the case of the green robes, this many robes are coming in, and but at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, there are this many, at the end of the day, there are X number. So you're measuring the input, you're measuring the output, you're validating the problem, and you're kind of going very close to the problem, and you're really trying to identify what's going on. You're looking at various activities, you're identifying process errors, and what you want to do is collect a lot of data and chart it out, put it on a chart, put it on a graph, and you want to calculate, okay, how many mistakes are happening, what is going on, how far away are you to what your actual target is. And so you really at this point need to sort of do some sort of um data, take the data and make a little bit of valuable information out of it by putting it in charts, by doing some sort of visual graphics, right? Once you have that information, the next phase is doing analysis of, okay, what is going on, where is the problem. And many times this involves doing root cause analysis, and there are some tools that are used for doing the analysis, because this can again be a little bit challenging or confusing. And there are two tools specifically that are highly recommended to do root cause analysis. The first one is the fishbone diagram, and the other one is 5 whys. And I will be talking to you about both of these in more detail in the next lecture, TQM tools part 2. But for now, I just kind of wanted to let you know that, it's very important to sort of try and identify what the actual root cause of the problem is. And once you have identified the root cause of the problem, then you want to get into identification of possible solutions, picking the best solution, and then implementing the solution. Now, in order to implement the solution, generally speaking, another tool is used called the PDCA, which I'm going to tell you next. So the improvement is not like, okay, you figure out the root cause, and now you're going to implement the solution in the entire organization. No, you take the solution and you test it out in a small sample, and you see that's this is kind of what PDCA is. You test it out on a small sample, you see how what the results are. You may need to tweak the solution a little bit, try it out again on a different sample, and you may have to do it 2 or 3 different times. And once you reach the best solution that works, you've tried it out on several different samples, only then do you roll it out effectively in the entire organization. And finally, once you have done that and you've rolled out the solution and you've made standard operating procedures accordingly, then you reach the final phase, which is the control phase. And here you want to make sure that you know um, it is constantly followed. Your solution, your proposed solution, or your new way, your new standard operating process or procedure is followed continuously. So you don't want that, the same problem comes up again. So this is, a very, very important tool for companies, because, and I believe it was Deming that came up with this. And this tool is great because many times there are problems that are happening in an organization. And again, as I kind of mentioned, managers, sometimes very senior managers, do not know how to solve the problem. And they just feel overwhelmed and they let the problems continue. You can't do that. You cannot do that. If there are problems coming up, you need to go and collect data, analyze it, improve it, come up with a solution, and then control it. And so you need to know this process. You need to know that this is the overall process. And you also need to know how you can do, your root cause analysis. So maybe somebody, throws a bunch of information or data at you. Well, what are you going to do with that data? You need to reach the root cause analysis. And once you do the root cause analysis, then again, do not come up with a solution and implement it all around your organization, because that may be the wrong solution. You need to do it in a small way, and then slowly, continuously test it before you roll it out for the entire organization. Okay, I had just mentioned the PDCA cycle. And again, the PDCA cycle is all about testing solutions on a small sample before you really go and you reach out to the whole organization and say, hello, this is a new standard operating procedure, and I want you to follow this procedure, and this is a solution to our problem. You do not want to do that until you are absolutely sure. And so the PDCA cycle is a great way to make sure that your solution is the right solution. So we can see, in this diagram, for example, there's an identification of a problem, analysis, program, and then you come up with a potential action plan. So that is in the first category. Then you test the solution out on a small sample, you check, you do your verification, and then you take action. You say, okay, you know what? This solution worked, it's perfect. Maybe we want to test another sample, and we are ready to then roll it out on a big scale. Or you say, you know what? Nope, this solution does not seem right. Let's try and change it just a little bit more and test it out again. So more formally now, I'll take you through what all of this terminology is. Oops, sorry. So this first one is planning, right? And this basically involves establishing objectives and processes that are required to give the final desired outcome. Again, over here, you're doing planning. You're saying, okay, let me figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do? What is my solution? And you figure out, okay, this is probably going to be the solution that I'm going to test out. Then the next phase is the do, okay? And this is the D phase of the PDCA, right? And here you actually are going to test out the plan. You're going to usually test it and see how, just test the whole thing out. And in the next one, C is the checking or the gap analysis. And during the check phase, data is gathered from the do phase and it's evaluated, and data is compared against what your expected outcomes are. And then you check to see if there are any similarities or differences. Now you need to, make sure that your testing process is correct, because if you're testing your sample in the wrong way, then you're not going to get the right results, right? So your testing process also has to be examined. And once, it is done, sometimes it has to be done. The PDCA cycle has to be done many times. It's not only once. This will then help you identify whether or not this is the right solution. So what your results are, you have to check it against what your desired results are, and that will help you identify if this is the right solution or not. Finally, the last phase is act is also called adjust. And in this phase, this is where the process is improved. You look at you look at the results of the do and the check phases, and you help identify issues with the process. And maybe there are problems with your solution. Maybe there are non-conformities or opportunities for improvement or inefficiencies or other different problems that you've identified, and you may want to tweak your solution and try to do another PDCA cycle. And remember, there's this slide I wanted to show you over here. Sometimes the PDCA cycle is done several different times before finally there is an ideal solution that a company comes up with. So it's not necessary that you do the PDCA cycle once and it's boom, it's done. No, it doesn't work that way. You do it as many times as needed for the management to really come to a conclusion that this is the right solution before it is rolled out. Again, this is the PDCA cycle again. Just I'm kind of good. It's a repeat, but I will repeat it for you over here. Again, you plan a change or test aimed at improvement, right? So you have a potential solution that you are wanting to test out, and you carry, and in the do phase, you carry out that change or test on a small scale. And you study the results then in the check phase, and you see, okay, what went wrong, what was right, is it close to your desired outcome or not? And then you in act, you either decide to adopt the change or abandon it, or you decide to change the solution just a little bit and perhaps do another PDCA cycle. And with that, I come to the end of this lecture, and I hope you really enjoyed it. And I hope you take away with you 4 different tools in your toolkit. The first one being the 7 ways, the second, the 5S, and then DMAIC, and then finally PDCA. And again, these are just really, really important tools for any manager to have, especially when you're managing an organization. It can get very overwhelming at times. Sometimes there are problems coming at you from all ends and you have no idea, where to start, how to solve them. And if you have these in your toolkit, you'll be in a much better position than others to solve the big problems. With that, I come to the end of this lecture. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to telling you about some other tools in the next follow-up lecture on the TQM tools. Thank you very much for your time, and take good care.